Hi, Graham Goodings here. There's been an amazing reaction to the news that I'm going to narrate an audiobook version of A Man Called Possum, written by Max Jones. A lot of you are familiar with the story of the man who lived life as a recluse. I think it was for more than 50 years along the banks of the Murray. For others of you, it's the first time you've heard of the possum, and it seems that you're keen to learn more. So while the audiobook is still some time away, I thought I'd give you a little background. Australia is renowned for its legendary characters. Ned Kelly, Don Bradman, Errol Flynn, Dawn Fraser, Harold Holt, Nellie Melba, Banjo Patterson, the list goes on and on. But each has made an impact on the psyche of the nation. All of them had huge public profiles. Now, they didn't necessarily seek publicity, but they really couldn't avoid it. I'm going to tell you of a man named David James Jones. The name will ring no bells. He never made a front-page headline. He never sought out notoriety. He never caused a scandal or never held the nation spellbound. In fact, he shunned the world and everyone in it. But despite all that, he's a legendary character on the Aussie landscape. David James Jones was better known as the Possum, a recluse who lived his life in the wild along the vast stretches of the mighty River Murray. From the late 1920s, for more than 50 years, he wandered the riverbanks, choosing to live a life of solitude. He sought no help. He sought no company. Why did he do it? Where did he come from? Was he a criminal, or worse, a murderer on the run? For decades, the answer remained a mystery. That was until a Riverland detective, Sergeant Max Jones, took an interest. Max Jones was a legend in his own right for his amazing police work and wonderful community deeds. But that's a story for another time. Detective Sergeant Max Jones, by the way, no relation to the possum, over many, many years became one of the few people to have contact with a possum, and the only person the possum would confide in. Although I think confide in is probably too strong a word. Max was the only person he would have any meaningful conversation with. That wasn't often. Months and even years could go by between their chats. But over that time, Max, using his deductive powers and police resources, found out all he possibly could about the man called Possum. And he pieced together a remarkable tale. But some aspects of David James Jones' story remain a mystery to this very day. During their contacts over the years, Max offered him food and clothing, only to be turned down. Even when he became eligible for the pension, he refused Max's offer of getting him social security benefits. He said he never wanted to be beholden to anyone. Think of it. Here's a man who turned his back on society at the time of the Great Depression. He was alone through all the years of World War II. In his time alone on the Murray, Australia's own car, the Holden, was born. The Snowy Mountain scheme was devised and then built. We saw the arrival of TV in Australia, the overthrow of the Whitlam government, man landing on the moon. But despite his isolation, he did have some knowledge of what was happening in the world and world events. The audiobook will tell you just how he stayed informed. Now, as you tuck up in bed on a cold winter's night, think of how the possum spent his nights. Along the river, the temperature can drop to well below freezing. Possum rarely had anything more than the clothes he was standing in. What did he do to stay warm? And spending the days in the open in 40-degree heat of summer, there was no air conditioning, sleeping in the hollow of a fallen tree. And what did he eat for all those years? And what if he got sick, had a toothache or worse? Just how did he survive? For 54 years, this enigma lived a life of total solitude, although Max would often say he had a real affinity with the wildlife. The birds and the animals were his company and his friends. He was a small but wiry man, seen swimming across the river during a peaking flood. Now, anyone that knows the river knows it can be very treacherous at any time, but in flood, look, you just stay well clear. But not so the possum. The legend of the possum grew over many years. What could he possibly have to hide? Why was he staying away from society? The audiobook details his close encounters with property owners who all had their own stories of the possum. But one thing they all agreed on, if he ever took something from them, like a bag of salt, a box of matches or some baling twine, he would always make payment. Believe me, this is a fascinating story for Aussies of all ages, and I'm really honoured to be asked to narrate it. Now, if anyone listening knows more about the possum and has any of their own tales to tell about him, please let me know, and maybe we can work them into the book somehow. A Man Called Possum by Max Jones. Look out for it. We'll speak again soon.